Thanks for joining us. It's the silly season. The political time of year before the elections where things get just way out of hand. And this year may set a record for odd. Earlier this year, Rand Paul won his nomination as a Republican candidate, then proceeded to go on Rachel Maddow's show and start to argue that the Civil Rights Act he would have voted against. One of his big claims was that businesses should be allowed to discriminate based on race if they so choose. Sure, let's go back to 1961. You've got Sharon Angle in Nevada running against Harry Reid. Before she won the nomination, Reid looked to be a sure loser. He's now ahead by 5 to 6 points in Nevada. It's not because they really kind of like him. No, it's mainly because Angle is out there. She's got all kinds of views. The first one that she espoused was that if Republicans didn't win in November, that the electorate should or might use their Second Amendment protected rights to fix things. In case you weren't all up on your Second Amendment rights, that would be the right to keep and bear arms. So basically what she's saying is, if they don't like what's going on, they should take up arms to fix it. Yeah, that's one we want to have happening. The latest is Christine O'Donnell. This one's a piece of work. The late night talk shows have had just a blast with one of her favorite positions, where in the past she has said that she is opposed to masturbation. I have no response to that. She's opposed to masturbation. She also has claimed, it's on video, seen it myself, has claimed on video that she knows something about witchcraft because she dabbled in it. Apparently went on a date and even had a picnic on a satanic altar. To those of you who watch, who are witches, pagans, etc., yeah, she's a nut job. We know that Satanism is not the same thing. She doesn't, but we do. So we're with you in opposing her. Scary thing is that 70% of the people in her state, I believe it's Delaware, don't believe she's electable. And yet, because she's the Republican candidate, the Republicans are putting money into her campaign. Now, on the one hand, Democrats may like that because they're going to spend money where 70% say she's not electable. They may move that to 50% thinking she's not electable, but that's still probably not going to get her a win. I have a slightly different take on it, and on all of these folks. There have been a number of candidates, in Florida it's Marco Rubio, who are the quote-unquote Tea Party candidates. I understand where Tea Party enthusiasts are coming from. I understand their anger, their frustration. Me too. But they're not thinking the whole thing through. Their thing is, get rid of the establishment candidate. Even if the alternative is a nut job. Because see, the real danger here is that people like Rand Paul, who doesn't believe in the Civil Rights Act, or Sharon Engel, who believes, or it's okay to say, hey, go ahead and take up arms against your oppressors, meaning Congress or the president, or Christine O'Donnell, who has got campaign finance issues where it appears she may have paid for her rent with campaign contributions. These are the people that are going to get elected if this continues. You think the people who are there are bad now? Wait until these people get in there. It's insane. Why would we allow these people in? You know, the amazing thing here is the Tea Party was initially funded, and still to a large part, by the Republican Party and by the right wing. Why? Well, they started funding the Tea Party movement because as Republicans, they're part of the establishment. They weren't going to get these people who are angry to follow them. But they figured if they get enough of those people to vote out Democrats, the Republicans have a shot at winning it and taking back Congress. So they funded them. Of course, what they didn't count on was the Tea Party people voting out Republicans. So now these fringe people have been given a voice and even a shot at representing you. That should scare you. It scares the hell out of me. Meanwhile, the Republicans, who have a good shot at taking over Congress, have vowed to basically reject and rescind all the stuff that has been passed in the last 18 months. Let's take a look at what some of that is. The first one is healthcare reform. By the way, just in the last 3-4 days, a number of measures of healthcare reform have kicked in. Children can now be kept on their parents' insurance until they're 26 years old, so they don't have to fight for insurance. Pre-existing conditions are no longer allowed as exclusions. Your policy can't be dropped because you get sick. All of these things didn't exist before the healthcare reform bill passed. And those are just the first ones to go through. Republicans are screaming that the Bush-era tax cuts are going to expire. Now, let's keep in mind something here. When they voted in those tax cuts 10 years ago, they put the 10-year expiration on it. They said 10 years from now, these tax cuts will end. The reason they did that was because if it went to an 11th year, i.e. permanent tax cuts, they would have to show how the tax cuts would pay for themselves. Instead, what they figured was, we'll just find a loophole. We'll say it's 10 years, but then we'll just get it extended at the 10th year, so they wouldn't have to show how to pay for it. Those tax cuts will cost $4 trillion if they are allowed to continue. They do not pay for themselves. Proof of that is very simple. In the last 10 years, the deficit has ballooned, and that money that the folks up there have gotten hasn't done anything to help the economy. It didn't trickle down. These people got the tax cuts and held on to the money. But if you want to find out just how cynical the Republicans are about it, there is a middle tax cut on the table. With that middle class tax cut, 98% of Americans will receive a tax cut. And in fact, the other 2%, the ones in the Bush tax cut, would actually get a tax cut as well for everything up to $250,000 in income. Their taxes on that income and down would actually be reduced. And then the stuff above that would have a higher tax rate. The Republicans won't pass, or are threatening not to pass, the middle class tax cuts because the other ones are going to be allowed to expire. So their rich friends in the top 2% have to get their tax cuts for you to get a tax cut. I don't make $250,000 a year. In fact, I don't know anybody that does. Not personally. Not $250,000 a year. So everybody I know would get a tax break. And like I said, the 2% will get that tax break on the first $250,000. That's not what the Republicans want. In fact, they couldn't care less about the middle class. If somebody said right now to the Republicans, you know what, let's drop the middle class tax cut and just give you guys the Bush era tax cut, they'd be happy. They wouldn't fight for the middle class tax cut. They don't want it because they don't care. It's not their ball of wax. They're not going to go there. Instead, they'll give it to their rich friends. Oh, and their other argument about it being small businesses that are going to be hurt. Yeah, they count small businesses as anybody who makes $50 million or more. I'm sorry, $50 million or less. That's what a small business is. $50 million. That's not a small business. $50 million? If you're a mom and pop and you are bringing in less than $250,000 a year in income to you, you're not going to get hurt. It's going to save you money. And let's say you're making $400,000 a year in income. You're going to get a tax break on the first $250,000. The increase, so-called increase, because it's only a return to what they used to be, will only be on the other $150,000. So out of your $400,000, I believe the increase is about 3%. So out of the $150,000, you're going to pay an extra $4,500, but you're going to get a tax cut on the first $250,000, which will probably make up for most of that $4,500. So you're probably going to break at least even. I had a friend on Facebook post a calculator. And you know what? I'm going to get a tax break. Guess who I want in there? The reality is the Republicans don't care. They want to repeal health care reform. They want tax breaks for their own interests. They don't want what's good for the middle class. They want what's good for the top 2%. So how does this tie in with all these nut job candidates? Well, the nut job candidates are being voted in as Republicans. Yes, the Tea Party is Republicans. if they get voted in, if these nut jobs get voted in because people just want to throw out the incumbents and are mad at the Republicans, all this other stuff is going to get turned into Republican wins. And we lose.